everyone, I'm Samurai Sam. Today I'm going to look at boxed Nintendo 64 games. Nintendo 64 is a console that is known for being the console where Nintendo fell behind first place, where Sony really took over the Western video game market for the foreseeable future, let's say. Nintendo really lost a lot of third-party support, and the system did not sell nearly as well as its predecessors, but it still had some respectable success and respectable library of Nintendo first-party games at least, and a few third-party ones here and there, but definitely not the same as Super Nintendo and NES. But I really like N64. It's not like one of my absolute favorite systems, but it was one of the first consoles I ever owned, and I definitely have a lot of memories of it. I like a lot of the games, and I will talk about that a little more as we go through the games. Let's start here with box games here. The 1080 Snowboarding. This is a game I honestly have not really played that much. I got this like in a lot with a few others for cheap. It's a snowboarding game. I believe this is like first party Nintendo, and it's considered to be pretty good. I don't know if it's really worth going back to in 2020, but yeah, maybe it's good. I don't know. I'm not really an aficionado when it comes to snowboarding games. Here we go. Banjo Kazooie. This is one of my favorite 64 games for sure. This is definitely one of my favorite games developed outside of Japan in general, honestly. This is a collectathon platformer, kind of builds on the controls and formula that Mario 64 set before it, which we will get to. And this game is just so much fun. It's got a lot of character, great music, and great gameplay, best of all. You get all kinds of abilities and stuff. Basically, you play as Banjo, and Kazooie is the bird that's in your backpack, and you can use Kazooie to do a bunch of different things. And it's just a really well-designed game, fun to play. Not quite perfect, but really, really good. Then there was Banjo Tooie, the sequel, and one cool thing about this game is that you start with all the power-ups that you collected by the end of Banjo Kazooie. So it really feels like a true sequel in that sense. That being said, Banjo Tooie is pretty different. There's more of an emphasis on like exploration and like kind of solving puzzles, I guess you'd say, rather than just straight platforming like in the first game. But it's still like controls pretty much the same, and it's a very fun game. I've beaten them both. Definitely recommend them. Bomberman 64, I can't really say too much about. This is one I haven't really played that much. But you have your standard multiplayer modes, which is probably the main reason why you play a Bomberman game. But there is a single-player campaign as well, and I don't think it's that different from regular Bomberman, but I don't know, I could be wrong. But yeah, it's full 3D, Bomberman 64. Then there's more Bomberman 64 games, but that's the only one I have. Diddy Kong Racing. This is a racing game. We're actually getting to like the kind of the follow-ups to Mario games that I haven't gotten to talk about yet. But anyway, Diddy Kong Racing is the number 2 biggest racing game on 64 behind Mario Kart. And it's one thing that sets it apart from Mario Kart is that it's not just karts. You can also fly planes and ride in hovercrafts. And it's considered to be a very good game. It's got more of an extensive single-player campaign, which Mario 64 lacked. Personally, I've never been super into Diddy Kong Racing. Like, it's a fun little game. It's never really grabbed me that much. Like, the campaign is not really... I've never beaten it. I haven't really felt that motivated to. But, fun little game. If you're played too much Mario Kart, you want something a little different, it's a good one to try out. We've got Donkey Kong 64, a game that received a lot of positive reception when it was released. Since then, I think there's a lot more people who have voiced their disapproval of this game. But this game is a collectathon, a lot like Banjo Kazooie, and not as good as Banjo Kazooie, but kind of in that vein. One thing that's cool about it is that you can control like 5 different Kongs and different characters that have different abilities and use them to get to different places and levels. Personally, I do like this game. The beginning is not very good at all, and it's like hard to figure out where to go and what to do and stuff. Once you get going, it's a lot more fun. That being said, there is some like tedium and repetitiveness in the design of the game at times, but it's a fun game. There's a lot of variety in it. Final boss fight really kind of comes out of nowhere. It's not something you'd ever expect, and a lot of like little mini games and stuff you find here and there. It's a fun game. Extreme G2. Again, we're getting to games that like I really probably should talk about the predecessor first, or like the kind of the other notable game on the system. But anyway, Extreme G and Extreme G2 are like futuristic high-speed racing games, kind of F-Zero-ish. We'll get to the first one earlier. I actually have hardly played this one at all, but I have a little bit of a history with the first one, so that's part of why I have this. And I know they're both good games. I mean, if you like racing games, if you like F-Zero, then you'll like that. Speaking of F-Zero, here's F-Zero X. the sequel to the Super Nintendo game of the same name. Well, not the same name, the original FZero game. I absolutely love FZero X. Like, I didn't play it when I was a kid. I was like a preteen when I first got this game, but it's very, very good game. Like, it sacrifices graphical detail for like a smooth frame rate, and it really pays off. It's just so much fun to play. It's they kind of changed the boost mechanics from the first game, whereas if you have like, instead of having a set number of them, you literally can sacrifice your health to use boosts. So you can increase your speed as long as you have health to spare, and it's a fun like kind of risk reward system that way, and just so much fun to play. Well, I have a little more to say about it, but we'll get to that. Here's Hybrid Heaven. This is a kind of a weird game, and I haven't played it a lot, so it's going to be kind of hard for me to describe it, but I think it's actually kind of an RPG. But that being said, it's not a typical RPG by any means. It's got kind of, it's called itself an action RPG. I can't really say that much about it, because it's kind of a weird game. Some people like it, some people don't. It's kind of, I guess, hit or miss. I can't really say that much about it, but I do intend to give it a try sometime. It seems kind of interesting to me. Here is Jet Force Gemini. This is kind of, I think this is a little bit less heralded of a release by Rare, which was like the biggest developer for the 64 besides Nintendo themselves. This is like a third-person shooter. Played the multiplayer for this quite a bit back in the day. I remember the campaign being really, really hard. I couldn't really get that far into it because it was just really difficult. And it's pretty good. Like I'm not like super into these kinds of games, but it seems pretty solid. A lot of people rate it very highly. I'm not sure how well it holds up today compared to other games of the genre, but that might be worth a look if you want something a little different for your 64. Here's a game I like a lot. It's Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards. One cool thing about this game is that they took Kirby's copy ability and they evolved it so that you can absorb 2 powers at once to like have a combined power. So like if you combine fire with the spike power, then you get like a fire bow and arrow power. Like there's all kinds of cool, unique combinations you can find like that. It really makes the game a lot of fun. There are like 3 crystal shards hidden in every level. Like most Kirby games, there's an emphasis on 100% completion, and which I have done, and I like this game a lot. It's a lot of fun, and it's also got some 4-player mini games that are also fun to play. So this is definitely a game that I recommend to pretty much anyone with a 64. It's actually 2D, by the way. It's not 3D platforming. It should be noted. Here's Mario Golf. Terrific golf game. You know, easy to pick up and play, and it's just really solid. I don't really know that much else to say about it. It's not like anything too crazy being Mario. Like it's not like super non-traditional or anything. But it's just a lot of fun, and a lot of different characters from the Mario. Also some unique characters like Plum that were never really in anything else. Kind of weird. I think this might be like the first sports game that Camelot ever made for Nintendo, if I remember right. But yeah, definitely if you like golf games at all, definitely recommend Mario Golf. Even with like the sequels, I think the first one is still worth going back to. Here's a big one, Mario Kart 64, one of the absolute biggest games ever released for the system. This game was known for like just having terrific multiplayer. It was like everybody's multiplayer game of choice back in the day, it seemed like. And, you know, it has, I think, 16 tracks, a lot of fun, a lot of variety to the tracks, and 8 different characters with, like, different attributes and stuff. And, well, this is the first game in the series that was 4-player. It's the thing. The Super Nintendo Mario Kart was only 2-player. This lets you have up to 4 players at once, and it's just a great multiplayer experience. Honestly, it probably is a little obsolete compared to the more modern Mario Kart games, but it's still a lot of fun, even if you do go back to it. Like, it doesn't mean it's not fun to play. It's just the other ones the newer ones probably have more to offer and probably are a little easier to control. But yeah, Mario Kart 64, it's a terrific game in the series, in the genre. It kind of like it kind of updated the original the original Super Mario Kart is very different from like the modern Mario Kart games, and this one was like the first one that is really similar to what the rest of the series would come to be known as. I'm not probably describing it that well, but yeah, Mario Kart 64, I love it. It's a great game. Mischief Makers. This is actually like a 2D platformer. Well, I think some of the graphics are polygons, but like it's primarily 2D. This is by Treasure, which is like the Gunstar Heroes people. And this game is unique in a few different ways, but like one way is that there's an emphasis on shaking things. You can grab all kinds of enemies and objects and stuff and shake them, and also throw them, I believe. And there's all kinds of like how do I explain it? Like you can go for 100% completion in this. Like there's like different things to find in the levels or something like that. I think there's like, I forget exactly how it works. I think there's like something hidden to find in every level or something like that. So like there's definitely incentive to go for 100% completion here. I'm not like the biggest Mischief Makers fan. I did beat it like a couple years ago, and I thought it was good. I didn't think it was like amazing, but yeah, definitely something very different from the 64. I don't think there's any 64 games quite like this. So if it sounds interesting to you, then definitely give it a shot. It's got some charm to it as well. Ooh, here's one of my favorites. This is Paper Mario. This is an RPG featuring Mario, only it's paper. Well, I remember when this first came out, I was like, why is it paper? Why didn't they make it nice 3D graphics? And actually, now I know why, because the 2D paper graphics age better. Yeah, this is just a fantastic game. Very non-traditional RPG, but with cool mechanics. Some like action-ish mechanics where like you need to like press the button a certain way or a certain timing or whatever. And it's just a fantastic game. Loads of fun to play. Interesting worlds and like lots of things to do, and you have badges that you equip that do all kinds of different things to your character, but you can only equip so many of them. And just highly recommend it if you like RPGs at all. Paper Mario, fantastic game. Perfect Dark. This is continuing the trend of talking about games that I probably should talk about a different game first, but this game is by Rare also. Rare's first big first-person shooter on the system was GoldenEye, which we'll get to, but this is the follow-up, and I think a lot of people consider this better than GoldenEye, but some people don't. I don't know. But this is probably pretty dated now. I mean, like the frame rate is not what you'd expect from like a modern first-person shooter at all. Like it looks choppy. I'm not like I've actually never beaten a first-person shooter in my life, so I can't like really comment on the quality of like campaign and everything, but this is what's considered when it came out, like very good game. And the first-person shooters by Rare are known for having good multiplayer as well. I don't think I've actually ever played Perfect Dark's multiplayer, which is unfortunate. Here's Pokemon Stadium, this game that I went nuts for back in the day when I was absolutely knee-deep in Pokemon fever. This game is well known for being like the game that let you play as your Pokemon in 3D. But what's cool is that you have the transfer pack, and you could plug in your Game Boy into the transfer pack. Not your Game Boy, but your Game Boy game, like your Pokemon Red and Blue and Yellow, into the transfer pack, and then transfer your Pokemon into the Pokemon Stadium to battle with them. And it's just a really good game. There's all kinds of like different modes, like tournaments and stuff with specific rules and different eligible Pokemon that you can battle with. And there's also a bunch of mini games that are fun, and it gets pretty challenging too, which is very much appreciated in my opinion. I guess the issue is, well, actually, what's funny is that there's a glitch that really makes this less of an issue. But the missing no glitch in Red and Blue lets you duplicate TMs and rare candies and stuff, and that really makes Pokemon Stadium a lot more playable because it's way faster to construct a competitive team by using that glitch. Otherwise, it would just take hours and hours of leveling up and replaying the game to get certain TMs more than once and stuff. But Pokemon Stadium, it's still fun today. I would actually still recommend trying it. But, you know what's even better than Pokemon Stadium is Pokemon Stadium 2. And fun fact, this is actually my single favorite Nintendo 64 game. Basically, this did everything that the first game tried to do and did it even better. And this is, of course, also compatible with Gold, Silver, and Crystal, so Generation 2, with 100 new Pokemon from that generation. And this game is just absolutely fantastic. If you love like competitive Pokemon battling, this is a great game for you. What's great about this is like, one problem with the single-player Pokemon games is that the computer really doesn't fight usually like a actual human being. In this one, they do. They use strategy. They have teams that have specific strategies that you have to like really like be prepared for and stuff, rather than like them just sending out 3 Pokemon of the same type and just using the same move like mindlessly. But Pokemon Stadium, I really wish they made more games like this. Like they did make Coliseum and XD on the GameCube. Those games definitely didn't have the same amount of love put into them as this one did. And this game also has something called the Challenge Cup, which I love going back to. Like just so much replay value because you get like a random team, and yet you go through the tournament with your random team, and I just love it. And there's all kinds of different ways to make it fun, and yeah, this game is I absolutely adore this game. Highly recommended even today. Here's Rocket Robot on Wheels. This is made by the same people who did Ratchet & Clank on PS2 not long after, and it's a 3D platformer, and I can't say too much about it because I haven't really played it, but it's highly rated, and it seems pretty cool from the little I've tried of it, and so, yeah, I would recommend it, I believe, even though I can't really recommend it. You know what I mean. We got, another good one right here, Star Fox 64. This is, like, bar none the best Star Fox game they've ever made, and they took the original Star Fox on Super Nintendo basically and like modernized it. Well, it's not a remake at all, but like it's kind of the same concepts and stuff, and just they used the Nintendo 64's power and they really did it the right way with 64. And it's got like really great, memorable voice acting. Well, I mean, some of it's a little cheesy, but that's fine. It's fun. It's memorable, and the gameplay is really, really solid. And like there's different paths you can go, which adds replay value, and it's just an absolutely great game, and definitely recommend it if you like shoot 'em ups and games like that. And here's Star Wars Rogue Squadron. This is also a very good game. Kind of, well, not quite like Star Fox. It's a little different, but you know, dogfighting sort of Star Wars game. And basically, I think you actually control Luke. Yeah, you play as Luke during this game, and like take on all kinds of different missions that didn't actually happen during the movie, but like around the same time frame, I think. And it's a lot of fun. I can't beat this game because like the last mission or two they're really, really hard. Like I just can't do it. But I definitely had fun getting there. This is a very well made Star Wars game, and if you like dogfighting, you like Star Wars, what are you waiting for? Absolutely pick this up if you have a 64. Super Mario 64, probably the #1 most famous, most highly acclaimed Nintendo 64 game. A launch title for the 64 and still one of the best ones. This is a 3D platformer that really, like, wasn't the first 3D platformer ever, but it really set the standard for 3D platformers. And it's just a fantastic game. There's like 15 different main levels that are all like fun and different, and there's lots to do, different objectives you can do in them. And controls are great. Camera's about as good as you could hope for. Like they really set the standard for camera control back in this day. And, you know, great music, just great everything. It's a great game. And I've played it to 100% completion, and you should too. Definitely recommended. Still holds up pretty well to this day, even though probably not the best Mario platformer ever, but it's very, very good. Super Smash Brothers. This is definitely a dated game. Like every other Smash Brothers game has a lot more to offer than this one. But that being said, this is the one that started it all. I remember when this came out, it was super cool and lots of fun. It still is fun to play today, don't get me wrong. It's definitely like not aged to the point where it's unplayable, but definitely it shouldn't be your first choice of a Smash Brothers game. There's just not like a whole lot of content here. It was originally like supposed to be like kind of a low budget release, but definitely a lot of fun. There's 12 how many times can I say definitely in one video? There's 12 different fighters. It's just a lot of fun to play multiplayer. Like you want to get 3 friends over and just spend a bunch of time just having a great time and throwing items around and seeing what kind of crazy things happen. And yeah, obviously it would come to be literally my personal favorite series in all of video game history, which is obviously saying something. And here we have The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Collector's Edition. Ocarina of Time, another one of the absolute biggest, most highly acclaimed 64 games, the Zelda's Leap to 3D. And I have never quite loved Ocarina of Time to the extent that some people do. A lot of people, this is one of those games that people consider to be like the best game of all time, or like one of the top 3 or whatever. It was never quite that level for me, but still absolutely fantastic game. I love this game. Played a lot back in the day. Didn't quite 100% it, but yeah, they really successfully transitioned the Zelda formula to a 3-dimensional type of adventure game. And made some changes, but kind of kept the core of it intact. And this one has like time travel, so like you can go 7 years into the future or back to like where you originally started, and like influence things that way and access different areas that way. And there's like a lot of cool new things added to the series in this installment, like new creatures, new items and stuff. And it's a very good game. It's not a perfect game, but it's very good. Even today, it's still fun to play. It hasn't like aged past the point of playability. And then this is also Ocarina of Time, but a different box variant. This is the Player's Choice version. It's in very nice condition. And then here's The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, the follow-up to Ocarina of Time. At first glance, it seems very similar to Ocarina of Time, like similar graphics and game engine and stuff, but it's actually very different. This one has like a unique time mechanic where there's 3 days, and at the end of the 3 days, the moon's going to come crash and destroy the world that you're in. And so, but you can like turn back to the first day anytime you want, and that's also how you save your game. So there's like, it's very unique. Like, there's a lot of events that happen on certain times during the 3 days, and like you have to do them all and stuff. There's all kinds of different masks to collect that do a bunch of different things, and it's a fun game to go for 100% completion on. There's only 4 dungeons as opposed to usually 8+ in a Zelda game, but I did enjoy Majora's Mask a lot. Beat it way back in the day, but like I feel like I remember it very well for the most part. Not everything, like, but you know, like the main experience. Very good game. Highly recommended to this day. One of the best 64 games. Here's Wheel of Fortune. Can't really say too much about it. I mean, it's Wheel of Fortune. From what I played, seems solid. Like, I like Wheel of Fortune games, and I don't remember this one being bad. I believe it has Rumble feature, which is kind of neat, like when you're spinning the wheel. Here's WWF WrestleMania 2000, and the 64 games by THQ were very highly acclaimed, and for good reason. These games played well, and yeah, just a lot of fun. I actually have never really been too much into wrestling, but way back in the day, my cousins were into wrestling, so they had this game, and a game I'm about to show you, and that kind of got me into, well, a little bit interested in wrestling. Like, these games were fun enough so that, like, I started, like, you know, I learned who the wrestlers were, and like, learned their themes and stuff, and kind of got into the culture a little bit. Yeah, this game is fun. I probably wouldn't recommend this one today unless there's like a specific wrestler in it that you want that's not in like the other games. The reason why is because really there's not that much of a reason to play it when you have WWF No Mercy. Now this one I do recommend going back to if you have a 64. This is like the best wrestling game on the console. It's got like a neat single player mode where like you basically go on these different paths to get win the different belts, and there's like branching paths, like it takes a while to get 100%, but there's a lot of unlockables, a lot of wrestlers, presentation is very good, gameplay is really solid too, a lot of different modes. Just a really, really good wrestling game, considered one of the best, and for good reason. And yeah, I definitely recommend it if you have any interest in wrestling and wrestling video games at all. Here's Yoshi's Story. Now this is kind of a follow-up to Yoshi's Island. Unfortunately, after Yoshi's Island, the series never really quite reached the same level of quality. That being said, I do actually like Yoshi's Story. It's kind of, the series kind of took, some would say, like a little bit of a kiddie turn after Yoshi's Island. That is as in Kiddy, as in the games like Yoshi's Island, Yoshi's Story and its successors were pretty easy games. Like, there's not like a ton of challenge, but it's still fun to play. Like, it's got fun, like, eating mechanics. You can eat enemies and fruit and stuff, and you can make eggs and throw eggs to do different things, and it's still fun. It's got, like, a certain graphical style that's charming, and it's solid gameplay. Not, like, the best gameplay. Could be better. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed Yoshi's Story. I don't think it's, like, one of the best 64 games, or one of the best Nintendo games, or it's definitely not the best Yoshi game, but I recommend checking it out. Now we get to Japanese games. Here we have the Japanese version of F-Zero X. Why do I have this? Actually, I'll get to that in a little bit. I'm going to put this back for now. Here is Pocket Monster Stadium. Now, believe it or not, the Pokemon Stadium that we got here in America, or rest of the world, I should say, is actually the second game in the series. This is actually the first one. And this game actually feels a little bit incomplete because you can't play as all 151 of the original Pokemon in this. Only like certain ones. Yeah, I think the battles that you do in this game are kind of based on like real tournaments they had in Japan or something like that. And like I actually haven't played this one too much. I have to build up a team in my Japanese Gen 1 games in order to do that. But probably not a ton of reason to go back to this one now, unless, like, you're curious like I am, because, like, you know, I love Pokemon and stuff. Yeah, like, this was the first time anybody got to see Pokemon in 3D, so I imagine kids in Japan were pretty psyched when this came out, but it definitely feels a little bit incomplete. So it's not like that big of a deal that America didn't get this one, but I thought it was an interesting collection piece, and it's cheap, so that's cool. Here is Sin and Punishment, and this is considered probably the number one, well, not probably, definitely the number one import 64 title. This is a, how do I describe this? It's like an action game, kind of, I don't know if I wouldn't really call it a shoot 'em up. It's like an action game, like a top-down sort of action game by Treasure. Again, the Mischief Makers people, the Gunstar Heroes people. And like I haven't played this one a lot. I've played it a little bit. Like I kind of know how it works, but you know, fast, frantic action involves like shooting things and like I'm describing it poorly because I just don't know the game that well. But yeah, if you like actiony stuff, you like arcadey kind of games where you blow things up and stuff, this is a game that you will enjoy. There was a sequel released on the Wii worldwide, so you might be familiar with that one. And Sin and Punishment was also released on the Virtual Console for Wii and Wii U, so American gamers got to play it that way, kind of. But yeah, definitely a good game. Just I need to actually spend time with it. Wonder Project J2. This is a sequel to, actually, I already showed you Wonder Project J1 in the Super Famicom episode. This is a sequel along those lines where, like, you kind of raise a virtual pet kind of character, like a robot who's, like, your virtual pet. And I think you, like, train them to behave or something like that. This game does have an English translation patch. I haven't really checked it out, though, but seems kind of neat. Now, as a little bonus, well, I do have a bunch of loose cartridges that we'll get to in the next video, but since I'm sitting over here, I guess I'll show off my two Nintendo 64 DD games, because believe it or not, I have a Nintendo 64 DD. It's the add-on that they made in Japan for the 64. It was supposed to help it in the fight against the PlayStation by providing like more memory and more content for certain games and stuff, but it kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed, and it was just... It lost all potential because of all the delays, and they eventually released it. They just wanted to salvage it, I guess, what they could. So it came out in Japan. Only 9 games came out for it. I have 2 of them. Here is Mario Artist Talent Studio. There were actually 4 Mario Artist games. This is the only one I have. But this is one where you can hook up like a camcorder or anything that has like analog video out, if I'm saying that right, like red, blue, yellow cords. Red, white, yellow. Duh. This comes with a capture cartridge that you put in the 64, and you can plug in your camcorder or whatever device that has video playback, and capture someone's face and put their face, like dress them up and like give them costumes and mustaches and stuff, and you can do a couple different things with them. You can have like kind of like a fashion show where like you have a few of your characters. Like this is a picture of the capture cartridge right here, as you see what I'm talking about. But, like, actually, the number one thing you can do is, I think, is, like, you can kind of make movies with them. Like, you can make, like, these little short clips where, like, you make the characters do different things and you can give them dialogue. And it's compatible with the 64 microphone as well. Like, you can give them, like, catchphrases. And it's a fun little goofy game. I had fun with this when I first got my DD, like, showing it to my family members and stuff. But, neat little game. It's not the reason why I got the 64 DD, though. The reason why I have the Nintendo 64 DD is this... The FZero X expansion kit, one of my favorite games ever, if you want to call it a game. It's kind of like DLC, honestly, but this has a few different features to it. Number one, you can save as many ghost racers in your time trial mode as you want, as opposed to, like, in the original cartridge, you can only save 2, period, like, ever. This one has it has a fairly simple car creator mode, which is simplistic but cool. It has 2 new Grand Prix with better tracks than like the ones that came on the original cart. They're a lot of fun and challenging. But the number one feature, the number one reason to get this, which is amazing, is the track creator. Now, I'm not like a super creative type. I don't usually like get all into creative whatever. But the track creator on this game is absolutely fantastic. You can basically build whatever you can imagine almost. I mean, there are limitations, but... There's a lot of freedom to how you build your track. Like, it's not like preset pieces that you place in a certain order. No, you can, like, actually freely move points of your track and, like, twist the track around and make it wide and narrow and like, really get detailed in how you make your tracks. And it's super cool. And I'm really sad that Nintendo never made another thing like this, never ported this, never remade it. That's kind of sad, because this is FZero at its absolute finest, in my opinion. And it's a shame that it's stuck on the DD. But I'm thankful and privileged to own it. So that's the first of what's probably going to be 2 Nintendo 64 episodes. We'll get into loose cartridges next time. I'm Samurai Sam. Until then, have a great rest of your day.